me and my dad have gotten so much closer over the years, mainly because I've realized that he's not finished growing. Our parents are not done growing. And it didn't hit me until I had my own kids.
Right.
And I'm like, the mother and father that Kanan and Artis experience now when they're 4 and 2, if they could verbally share who we are now, that would be a completely different person to who they see when they're 8 and 10.
Hi, my name is Roxanne.
And this is Les.
And this is
The Family Dinner Podcast.
Well, we'll be talking about family, relationships, love, and our relationship with God and everything else under the sun. We hope that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Today we have the Dorelli. Is what we we have Chris and Breauna Dorelus, and I'll start with Chris. I do appreciate our friendship. I feel like you are very wise, but you are like also reserved. So like you don't show that you're wise and that you're really smart, but then when we talk, I'm like, huh. Like that is interesting. I don't think you show off how like smart and wise and kind you are. I think that's the humility. And I think like knowing like the Haitian men that I know, and I don't think I think you give off that you're Haitian, but I don't think you carry all of the baggage that can come with being a Haitian man. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, and Bree, one of the very, very, very few people that can make me cry. But happy tears every time, and I feel like every time we talk, Bree is just like we see each other in a way that like I don't think I knew I needed to be seen, and it's just like really like raw and authentic conversations like every time, and I'm like, who is this girl? I feel like I'm like blanking out, but I just feel like it's just like so authentic every time, and so I appreciate you, Bree. And you all are our anniversary twins.
Yeah. October 9th.
October 9th, great month, things I like.
Yes.
Best time of the year.
Absolutely.
You say it's about to be 8 years.
About to be 8 years, which is crazy. It's crazy. And we talked about it off mic, but just got a notification on Facebook that today makes 15 years that we've been Facebook friends. So, that's a big deal, being friends officially on Facebook. So it's been a blur. But it's been fun, full of excitement and adventure. And I'm excited you still like me.
And I feel like I like you more and more. Even we were talking like through every saga.
Yep.
I am coming to realize in a really good way that we weren't the same. That who we were when we met, while at the same time, my personhood has matched his personhood in the ways that we have like shaped and grown throughout our different chapters, and so it continues to be that he compliments me and I compliment him, even though we've both changed so much. I feel like we've both risen to the occasion in every one of those years, whether by crawling or running, we've made it. And so, yeah, now that's a blessing to do this with you all who have anniversary twins on like that notification, like 15 years, together. Yeah. So I can even see this as like, we can listen to this in 20 years or, right. However, and just see who we were back then and sort of kind of capturing the moment in time. So that's really cool. Thank you for having us.
Oh, no, thank you for having us at your home. This is good. So how did you guys meet? We'll start with that.
Who's gonna tell the story? You wanna rock, paper, scissors, tell the story?
Go for it, and I'll fill in.
So we met in college. We both went to Georgia Southern down in Statesboro, Georgia, about 3 hours south of here, and that's actually her hometown. So Bree's a little older than me. Mature man.
That's 2 years.
But
I'm a whole cougar.
You know what I mean? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But
It's
like
2
a-
weeks. The 2 was the same. Okay.
But I was a freshman, and she was a junior. Just kind of focused on finishing up. But Georgia Southern is a predominantly white institution. So there's not a lot of us. So a lot of us, meaning black folks, kind of knew each other, and it was kind of like 1 degree of separation. So we had mutual friends, but we officially met for the first time at the club.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so, yes,
was at the club.
Pre Jesus, we were at the club. Club, kind of a lounge. You know how some of those college towns have these bars that people hang out with and drink and dance and listen to music and eat. So it was kind of a situation like that. And I saw something I liked, walking by.
Wait a minute.
And I grabbed her attention, and we talked and danced and connected then, and tried to connect further after we met, in the moment that night. But she curved me, which I appreciate. I appreciate now, because if it would have went different, we probably wouldn't have been married. So.
And I'm gonna just say, when you said you saw what you liked, so much of that before was premeditated. So I had already saw him on campus a couple of times. So I literally saw him like in the crowd, and I told my friend, I was like, I'm going to intentionally walk past him. And I'm such a hopeless romantic, like if it's meant to be kind of thing. So I said, I'm going to walk past him, and if he grabs me as I walk past, meaning get my attention, not like, assault,
Right.
But if he, if I get his attention, then it's meant to be. But I'm not going to stop. I'm going to just keep going past him. If he doesn't do anything, then it's just not meant to be. I'm not going to pursue.
Yeah.
And so I, on the back end, am mustering up all this courage, going in the bathroom, looking and making sure I'm good to go.
Right.
And then I'm walking, okay, shoulders back, walking past him. And then he's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like,
Got it.
so that's the backstory of there's some intentionality.
It was an aura.
There.
It was an aura that just
Oh,
drew me towards it.
She had a glow.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So it was interesting because we connected that night, and then it was just, conversations, hanging out. And there was like moments where, I wanted to take it further because I was a junior. I'm also, my past, I'm just a monogamist, and I want to be in a relationship. And so I want to know, like, what are we? And so...
And I, again, being a freshman, I was trying to experience the college, the quote-unquote college life, and I actually had never been in a relationship. We were just talking about Facebook official. Like, I've never, been in a relationship, put it on Facebook, none of the, the situations that I've been involved with, met my mother. And so, like, getting in a relationship was the last thing I was thinking about. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of in a different sides of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And then I think it hit a tipping point. I'll let you speak to that.
That was just a point in time where I was like, what are we? And what we doing? And
no, let me give a little more context. So it was when she was planning her 21st birthday.
Yeah.
And her friend was, had an apartment down there, and they were, I'm gonna keep it real in this podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
They were mixing and putting together Jello shots. Mm-hmm. So they're in my kitchen, and actually her friend started interrogating me and was like, so you and Bree, like, what are y'all? And I'm like, we're cool. You know what I mean? we kicking it. Like, what do you mean?
His exact words were, we cool. So what are y'all? I'm just living life. He said, I'm just living life.
Look, I'm living life now. We're before us living life. You know what
So
I mean?
I caught wind of living life.
Living life. And you heard that.
I heard it loud and clear, like, oh, living life. And so that automatically for me was, let me set my expectations and you are homeboy status. What's up, bro? Like when you text me, what's good? Like, how you doing?
It's a hard R.
And so I think you felt that shift.
Yeah, I didn't like the shift. And, communication started getting kind of spotty. We actually, I think what it kind of sparked it again is when we ran into each other on the bus. And I laid eyes on her. I'm like, I'm tripping. You know what I mean? Not just even, I'm playing. But at that point, her being from Statesboro, I got a chance to, like, meet her family and meet her parents. And, her brother is, like, we're the same age. So me and her brother were super close. So not only, who she was as a person, some more context, she grew up on a farm. So, they had chickens and goats and pigs. So her mom and parents are amazing. So, I was not only attracted to her, but just like her upbringing and her family values, and they echoed a lot of the same, family values that I had. So, I was pretty dumb back then, but I was smart enough to know, like, if I mess this up, I wouldn't be able to find, somebody like Bree again. So I think that's when I, really started to take it serious.
So from there, one day I think we were at my apartment and he asked if I would be his girlfriend. And that was what, August 29th, 2010.
Yep.
Was it 2010, 2011?
Yeah, 2010.
2010. And we've been together ever since. And then got married October 9th, 2016.
Here we are.
Okay, so you kind of alluded to it, Chris, but just kind of like thinking about like family and just like seeing like Bree's upbringing. So that kind of like, makes us think about like the first question. So like, what is each of you all's family dynamic like? Both your family of origin, so like how you grew up, and then your dynamic within like your family. What is that like? And however you want to answer that question, there's no right or wrong way to answer that, but whatever you feel is relevant when you think of family dynamic.
You want to go first or you want me to go first?
You can go. Got it.
So, not only we're, anniversary twins, I share similar ethnicity as my brother Leslie, so we're both Haitian. So I was born in the States, but both of my parents were born in Haiti, and moved to Chicago and met. They both separately moved to Chicago, met in Chicago, and had me and my brother up there. My parents had me pretty young, so they were like 19, 20 years old when they had me. So not only that they were, foreigners, but they were young, now with the kids, so they're just trying to figure things out. I joke that, my brother, well, it's not a joke, but my brother and I attended my parents' wedding. I still remember their wedding. I think it was probably about like 5 years old when they got married. So I have still some memories from it. And, they did their best to raise us. Again, looking back, I see that they were trying their best and they sacrificed a lot. Of course, they weren't perfect. We weren't easy to raise, but, sacrificed. They did whatever they could to make sure that we had what we needed. We kind of lived in a kind of a tougher area, and the school districts wasn't great. So, they worked multiple jobs to send us to private school. So my brother and I went to Catholic school for most of our life. And, didn't love it in the moment, but thinking back now, it's really shaped me in a bunch of different ways. We were your typical family. My parents got divorced, and, Breauna and I actually were just talking about this. That whole time is pretty unclear, but it was a little before we got married. So I'm sure we may talk about it some more, but there were some insecurities coming out of that divorce and moving into a marriage that, existed within me. But, they still here in Atlanta. I get to see him often. But now, we've been married for, to speak to my current family, we've been married almost 8 years, and, we have, 2 beautiful kids. Artistes are just are energetic and full of personality. Little 4-year-old, our sassy 4-year-old, and Kanan, he's my son. He's 2, full of energy. Keeping me on my toes. So that's the unit. We're not hoping for any more. God's given us the 2, and that's the plan for the stay that way. So yeah, we're currently a family of 4.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, as you heard, grew up in Statesboro, Georgia. My home come from definitely a rural background, play in the dirt, playing in the sand with my brother. I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me. My mom comes from just a phenomenal family. My grandfather was a sharecropper. And so he bought himself out of sharecropping and bought acres and acres of land in Soperton and created an entire business and just operation of getting everything from the land. And my mom has 10 brothers and sisters, and all of them were able to go to college or get a post-secondary education. And that was the thing that they really touted in the family. And so from my mom's side, a deep background of family and commitment to caring for one another, a deep connection to the land too. And that's the same with my father and his family. Definitely came from humble beginnings. My father is, he will never meet a stranger.
Mr. Bug.
Ever.
Call him Mr. Bug.
Ever. He already probably knows you. Like when you walk into the room, never ever meet a stranger. He retired from working so many different jobs throughout my life. Always provided, always felt like I was in a safe environment, protected environment. He was in the National Guard for a lot of his career. He did tours, Iraq, Afghanistan, as I was growing up. And so there was this level of, he would go for a year or so and then come back, and we would have changed as children. And then he's like, okay, so what's your favorite color? Or like, okay, so who are you? And so there were moments where my mom just really held us down. And she was a teacher. She's been a teacher her whole career and retired not too long ago. And so coming from a dad who just didn't meet a stranger and a mom who was an educator, and both of them have connections to the land. They're both farmers now. And being able to see that and see how they connect community to that is something that was really, really important, I think, for me to see and a part of my history and growing up. And so, like, as Chris was saying, a lot of our families have the same values of connectedness and like wanting to be around each other, and just the spiritual foundation. I absolutely got my spiritual foundation from my parents and the way that they emulated God. And it just wasn't specifically with my mom. It just wasn't like she was one way in church and then you saw like a different way, when she was at home. But it was so funny. I was there recently and I found her prayer box. And I was like, I remember this box. Yeah. Her putting stuff, writing it down and putting it in the box.
Was there stuff in there?
I looked. I was nosy and I looked. And I had saw a prayer that she was like, you can write in this too. And so I saw a prayer that I had wrote when I was 12 or 13. And that just sort of kind of rocked me. And so it made me really think about like our family dynamic now and what practices and spiritual disciplines and just the way in which Jesus is in our hearts, how are our children going to see that? Like, I want them to have moments of, I remember when daddy was like this, and he showed me Jesus in this way. Yeah. I remember when mommy was reading her Bible. I remember when daddy said, pray about it. Like, I want them to remember those things. And so I think that's my prayer, that they are seeing it, and that we just sort of kind of exude Jesus all up in the home. You know what I mean? I feel like as far as our family dynamic is concerned, I feel like we put family first. I feel like there's a level of integrity from Chris of protecting our family. Not just protection as in if somebody's going to come through the door, but protection of our time, protection of our energy, protection of, no, Reese, you know, this is how you treat your brother. Or Kane and we don't hit, you know what I'm saying? Just those very, you know, those connection points of like, this is how we value family. I feel like we really commit to our love and to trying to make sure that we are whole so that we are overflowing with that when the kids come. Because these kids, it's hard. And so, I think that we try to do our best in putting ourselves first in our marriage before everything as far as a priority, so that the kids are taken care of and they see that represented in the love that we have for them too. So, yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. I feel like you was writing stuff over that.
Yeah, I had to look something up because it made me think of something else as like a follow up to your family dynamic within your marriage. So, have y'all heard of the kite and string analogy?
I haven't.
So I could be butchering it. I was looking it up this whole time, and I still don't think I found it. But I'm gonna go off of what I think it is. So a kite. So they think there's two of these in a relationship. A kite is someone who is soaring, visionary, has these great ideas, thinks about different things to do, and you know, it's kind of like in the clouds. They're not really thinking about like the, you know, the day to day, but like they have all these ideas. The string is a person keeping them grounded. Okay, let's think about this. Let's think about like the bills are coming up. Let's think about, you know, like how much is on our savings. You know, and not only money, but like there's this idea that there's these kind of two people in a relationship at all times. So like within your family dynamic, where do you feel like you fall? Like, are you both kites? Are you both strings? One, you know, a kite string. So I kind of wanted to know about that.
No, that's a great analogy. I've never heard it, but I think that 100% plays into, you know, our marriage. And please, you know, correct me if you see things differently. But I feel like I'm the kite and you're the string. You know, I don't. We was talking about this earlier. Like, I don't resist change. You know, it's actually problematic at times because I could struggle with discontentment. You know, I'm always like, what's next? You know, what's the next job? What's the next move? What's the next? You know what I mean? I remember buying this house. So we've been in this house for about a little over a year now. Like, Bree had to promise me. She's like, I don't want to hear in 5 years we're moving after we get a house. And that's just how. Honestly, that's just how my mind works. I'm like, after 5 years, you know, we could rent this and buy a bigger house, and you know what I mean. So, you know,
got high.
So I've always kind of dreamed big and thought big and have this grand vision for the family. But you know, Bree absolutely makes it happen. You know, she's all things, you know, operations and admin. You know, she handles the day to day. You know, she helps pace the family. You know, because, you know, sprinting isn't, you know, great at all times. So she helps set the pace. So I think we work well together. She has this amazing business that she does, you know, that's, you know, it's just blessing the world. And I help her even think bigger about the business. But, you know, she, again, helps and make sure, you know, the bills are paid. Literally, she's the one who, you know, making sure the bills are on auto pay and take care of that kind of stuff, what the kids are going to eat for dinner. So, you know, the blessings that we've been able to enjoy wouldn't happen if it wasn't, you know, for her.
Thank you, love. Yeah, I think it's interesting from a perspective of, you said string? Yeah. I definitely feel like I'm the string. And I feel like what's interesting with the string and the kite is, like you said, like y'all are sort of kind of, you both need each other. But I think there's such an interesting dynamic that within the day-to-day, me making sure that me being the string doesn't feel like, but I don't believe in the kite. Like, I don't believe in his vision. And that's hard because, and in the same way, you know, someone who's a kite and looking at the string stuff is like all of these barriers in the way from the vision, you know? So I think that I think it's such a important for there to be a, you know, overarching statement of all times of like, yeah, we are actually on the same team. Yeah. And in order for us to both soar, you know, making sure that we both play the role, but know that the role is not a hindrance, you know, to the other. I feel like we were just having a conversation maybe a couple of days ago, and we were just dreaming, you know, and we were bouncing back and forth ideas. And then I was like, yeah, and this includes like, with this money, this includes the paying off debt, you know, that we currently have. And Chris is like, yeah, baby. Yeah, it's included in that. And I'm like, it's and the thing about it is, on one side, it was already in his brain, but me being the string, I'm like, can I hear it that you're like on this, you know what I'm saying? That we're there. Right. And so I think that there's just this beautiful just connection that we both have. And he has really allowed me. One day he asked me, he was like, so what's your bucket list? What's on your bucket list? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he was like, think bigger. I'm like, I don't know.
I forgot what she said, like travel to Tennessee or something. I don't know what that example. I don't remember the exact example, but it was something like that we could do the next week.
You know what I mean? Know.
I'm like, man, bro, you gotta think bigger.
Think bigger.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tennessee's nice.
Right. Tennessee, we love Nashville. Tennessee is great, but it's 3 hours up the road.
Versus him, like, what's on your bucket list? And he's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to like, what is that thing called? The Formula 51? Formula One. Like one day, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that one day. And I'm like, what? And so I think we balance each other out really, really well.
Another, you know, real quick, just a practical example in how it could cause tension was going back to buying this house. You know, because, you know, this house was a little out of our budget. A little out of our budget, and you know, we didn't expect to, you know, land in a house this big and just perfect. Honestly, you know, again, my expectation was just, you know, small. Well, my expectation was a small starter house, and you know, something that, you know, we just have room.
Started as like one, you know,
right
within a chain of houses.
But you know, when we saw this, I was like, nah, this is it. This is the house. We could grow into it. You know, we could raise our kids here. You know, it cost so many bucks. Our best friends live in this neighborhood as well. You know what I mean? So that's been a blessing. They're the godparents to our kids. So I'm like, let's go for it. Let's figure out, you know what I mean, how to make it happen. And, you know, from Bree, I perceived it as just like all the reasons it can't happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was getting discouraged because I was so excited. I'm like, and we had to have a real heart-to-heart conversation where it was like, hey, Bree, you know, you're the smartest person I know. You're prudent. You're wise. You know what I mean? You're insightful. You know, you have this intuition that that no one else has. Like, I value that information. You know what I mean? But, you know, how you position it and how you voice it matters because, you know, I want to hear kind of, you know, the things that we have to, you know, think through, but at least have a positive spin to it. So, you know, that's a perfect example of how, like, yeah, that practicality matters because, you know, we had to, you know, make the budget work. But, you know, what does it look like for us to lead with faith? You know what I mean? And so I think it was definitely a breakthrough in how we work together on like just major projects that we're involved with.
That's a good example. Both of y'all was talking about how you went to Catholic school, Chris. Then you talk about your mother's faith.
Mm-hmm.
How does that translate to you, being disciples? And how is that relationship with your parent or like your families now?
Yeah, so just a backstory a little bit on our journeys with God together, so then we can sort of kind of like back up a little bit. But we were both baptized together, Jesus is Lord and Savior, December 2016, so 2 months after we got married. And so throughout our engagement, throughout wedding planning, like we were studying the Bible and we were going on, the journey of what it looked like to be with God. And so one of the main things that I had struggled with was the fact that I had been in church. I had been in, putting quotations over, been in church.
Right.
I grew up in church. Church was deeply a part of my whole ethos. I just
Right.
And I had so much head knowledge, but I don't know if I had the heart, the convictions.
Mm-hmm.
I got baptized at 12. Had a little bit of understanding of what was going on, but I mean, college hit. Hello. You know what I mean? Like,
She met me.
you know what I mean? So, I mean, things, you know what I mean? I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
So then experiencing that, and then Chris being the one to actually introduce me to what it's like for us to, go deeper together. My first consideration was like, amen, yes, I'm so glad you're finding Jesus. Me and Jesus are over here.
You good.
Come over and join us. And it wasn't until I started understanding, realizing the Bible for myself alongside Chris, is that I'm like, no, this is not a him coming over to me. It's both of us going towards Jesus together. And I'll be forever grateful for him opening that door. While at the same time, I was really concerned about what my mom would say, because she's a minister. And she taught me, I saw the Holy Spirit lived out in her. And so when baptism came up as, I'm like, no, I don't need to get baptized, because I felt this sense of me starting over. This is me starting over.
Right.
And me starting over means that everything that my mother has poured into me is not relevant. It didn't matter. It didn't have anything to stand on. Why do I need to start over? And it really was a testament to like just me feeling like I was gonna have like my mom wasn't who she said she was. And so I was like, what you're doing is not, I felt like it's not you coming against my sin, it's you coming against my mama. Because my mama and me and my mama are so close. So I looked at it like, oh, you coming against my mama and how she raised me.
Yeah.
I don't like you like that. And this is like, as we're talking to, people who are disciples who are helping us learn about Jesus. And so that was my real hurdle. And I'll never forget, one of the sisters was like, no, this is not an erasure. God has always been pursuing you. He has always been talking to you. Every moment, prayer has always been heard. This is the next chapter in your relationship with God. And I just bawled. I was just like, the doors opened, and I was like, okay, I do understand this is not an erasure. This is a progression. And then that's when I was like, yep. And Breauna, be real.
Yeah.
You were 12 years old, and you need to get, and then it was just this extra added on top that I was doing with my husband, and he baptized me. And so he was baptized first, and then he baptized me. And so I'm just like, we're doing this together, and we're starting a marriage strong in this way. And I wanted nothing more than to repent and said, let's do this. And my mom was all for it. I mean, she was really all for it. And she was like, you do whatever you need to do in order for you to feel like I will see you in heaven. And that was also just, a kiss from God to be like, no, this is a continued journey. And of course she asked questions, and she had questions about the church, but she also had this level of trust, I think, from God. It was like, you've always kept my children. We will continue to keep her. So,
So I grew up in Catholic school most of my life. So I always had a foundation of who God was. But I don't want to speak to everybody's experience, but there wasn't real conviction. We had a religion class every day, but it was a workbook. We didn't read out the Bible. Some of Mass was in Latin, so I still don't know what we were saying. So the second I graduated high school, I was like, I'm doing whatever I want to do. You know what I mean?
I'm laughing because I'd be sitting there, I'm like, I don't know what we talking about.
Right. But I still, because we went to a funeral probably about a year ago, and it was at a Catholic church, and I still remember when you're supposed to stand, kneel, sit. I still can't even know the sayings. It just clicked, just like I was a 13-year-old kid. But yeah, so once I graduated high school, I didn't have no conviction. You know what I mean? I was doing the college thing, and I actually got to a place where I was questioning the divinity of Jesus. This was around, I think, 2012, and there was a lot of civil unrest, and this was right around when Trayvon Martin died, or got murdered, and I was really, at that time I was doing some stuff with the youth, and I got really involved in that case, and I was really just mad at the world. And I'm like, kind of bought into this narrative, like, what has the church done for black people? What has Christianity done for black people? I see, the state that our people are living in, and, we're some of the most religious people, and we're living terribly. So I questioned who Jesus was. I always knew there was God because of my upbringing, but I just didn't know what that looked like. So I went through a stage where I studied Buddhism and and Islam, and I went to see Louis Farrakhan speak. And actually, last time we went to DC was 2015, and we went. It was the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March to see Louis Farrakhan. So we're trying to figure that all out, and in that same time, I met, who became, a spiritual mentor of mine, Mike Patterson, at my job. I was working at LA Fitness at the time. And he was just one of him and his wife, Sean, was just one. They were just come to work out, and I worked at the front desk. So I got to know, a bunch of the members of the gym, and we got to talking. He presented himself as a Morehouse professor, so I loved history. I love social studies, and we talked a lot about what was going on in the world. And he invited me to church, and I came just off the muscle of just our relationship. And he was preaching. I had no idea he was a preacher. He was preaching that Sunday. I was like, "What are you doing on stage, Mike?" But we studied the Bible. But that paired with just meeting, godly men, for the first time who had conviction. I didn't even know what that word meant until I met, other disciples. Other disciples who were young and, who looked like me, who were married. I'm like, wow, I've been dating Bree for probably about 4 years at this point. Marriage was still so far in the future because I just didn't know what that looked like. Yeah, I'm just living life. Just living life, right? But they made it real. They showed me, how this could be done. You know what I mean? And they showed me what the standard looked like, and so that was a big inspiration for me, to make that decision. To make Jesus Lord. And coming from my parents' divorce and just some of the kind of toxic culture that I don't want to say that comes from being a Haitian man, because there's a lot of kind of negativity going around the Haitian culture right now that I don't want to speak to. So I'll just say kind of in my sphere, I just didn't see a lot of positive relationships. There's a lot of vices that exist in my family. Alcohol and women. So, I knew that Bree deserved better. I knew I wanted something different, and I was, again, it wasn't super smart, but I knew that if I wouldn't change my mindset or go a different path, I was going to end up the same way as some of the people in my environment, how they lived. So that was a big motivation as well. So all of that in culmination of just really God showing Himself to me was the reason why I decided just to surrender and take myself off the throne and make Jesus Lord. And yeah, that was 8 years ago.
And how was when after you graduated high school and then lived your life, like how did your parents respond?
So they were excited actually. Yeah. I mean, mainly my mom. I wasn't really speaking to my dad too much then, but she was just on some do what you got to do to get right with God. She felt like her contribution. And she talked about, faith in God, but she felt like, her contribution was putting me in private school, and that's how I was introduced to God. And she was excited to see, me take ownership of that when I became an adult. So she was supportive of that.
Yeah, I usually am a stay on the script girly, but look at me going off script.
That's a string. Sometimes the kite
right.
Pull the string.
But I'm just thinking, we all have siblings, and I'm wondering how you coming into your marriage has affected the dynamic with your siblings, if it has. I am the oldest of 5, and I think I was always looked at as like the second mom growing up, and I think especially after my stepdad passed away in 2022, like it was like magnified. It was like, oh yeah, like let's talk to Roxanne about like what to do. Mind you, I've never been in a situation like this before, so I feel like it was a lot of things like magnified. This was before we got married, but I really had to like lock in like with God, with therapy. Like that's when I first got introduced to it, and so I had to like set some like expectations for myself, set some really like hard boundaries with my family, because like I knew that if it would continue the way that I grew up into a marriage, it wouldn't be good. It would be like, it would definitely be some sort of a disaster and catastrophe. So I'm wondering if your dynamic has changed with your siblings, because I know sibling relationships also kind of like colors the way that we live our lives, and the dynamic that we were within our sibling dynamic is also, important, and it kind of like changes us.
Yeah. And both each of y'all have one sibling. You have a brother.
Yeah, I got a baby brother. Well, he's like 7, but my dad got remarried, and he has a son with his new wife. So, I guess since I'm already talking, I guess I'll continue to speak. So, yeah, I have a big.
Remember how you was like, you have an older brother that's 11 years older.
Yeah. Similar, right? Similar. My dad. Yeah, I'll leave that alone. Yeah, so the brother I grew up with in my household, he's 3 years younger than me. So they were kind of that kind of sibling rivalry that exists. I think a lot of times he didn't want to be like his older brother. You know what I mean? And not like I'm just this great guy, but I'm like, I'm older than you, so of course you're gonna follow me in a lot of ways. So we weren't really that close growing up. We're super close now, which I'm grateful for. He moved to Europe and lived in Europe for a few years and came back. And I think it's cliche, but like distance made the heart grow
Fonder. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm bad with that. She always checks me. So
American sayings.
Right. So we're super close now. What's also helpful is, and this is just purely God, like how close our families are together. So like him and Bree have a relationship outside of me, and I have a relationship with, Tremaine, who's Bree's younger brother, outside of her. So, there's a fluid kind of family dynamic between the four of us, which we're super blessed for. God did his thing in allowing that to happen. So just being older, and even from our friends, like I've always kind of been, I hate to say like the leader, but they looked at me to make decisions and and where to go. So I think I say all to say, because my brother and I are close, and we actually do the same things professionally. And we attend some of the same meetings, and now we have some of the same friends. It helps when I try to give advice or share the gospel. It's not just coming from me, you know what I mean? Because he hears it from Bree, you know what I mean? Or he'll hear it from Jazz Vic, or whoever he has friendships and relationships with that are in my circle. So I'm glad that I'm not just the only positive influence that he has in his life. He's been dating, and they ask questions about our relationship, and how we've navigated certain things. So that has been helpful too. So yeah, I just think more than anyone, he knows where I've come from, because he's seen it, you know what I mean? So if anything, just my changed behavior, my mindset, how I talk, how I speak, is evidence to God, because he know that's not who I was, 8 years ago. He's somebody that I continue just to bring in. Anytime I hang out with other disciples, I try to invite my brother there, so he, again, could be influenced, by others. Anytime I'm having something here, this house has been a blessing, and it's kind of a source of community where people could gather. So, when I have people over, I try to invite him and his girlfriend so he could see it, because that's what's helped me, just really being able to see, other couples. So that's one way I think, making Jesus Lord has hopefully, positively influenced in the right way.
And super quick before you answer, Bree, it's so crazy that I'm also connected to your brother, because he's close to my cousin Bradley, and they went to Georgia State together. Yeah. So even though I knew him through you, he was at my cousin's wedding, I was there too. So I'm the world is too small. So small. God is doing something in his life as well, bringing him around different people. So it's just so crazy. I just wanted to say that.
That's awesome. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. How has the dynamic between you and your sibling changed since getting married, if it has?
I think it's I think our dynamic has changed for the good, because we're both married. So he's married. He has 4 kids, and so it was interesting because there wasn't, sometimes when a sibling gets married, we're really close, very close. There was a point in time where he went off, and he's a retired Marine, and while he went off and was doing his thing, Paris Island, came back, I really felt like I didn't recognize him, because I felt like so much of his experiences had changed him. And so there was a moment of us being super, super close, then him joining the Marines, and then me not really recognizing who he was. And there's this slow creep to him almost coming back to the Tremaine I remember. And he will say that too. And there's still some remnants, I think, of just the ways in which he was trained as a Marine that sort of kind of has rewired his mind in the ways that he thinks. But for the most part, we have always been, really close. And so I think there are sometimes when you have a close connection with a sibling and then one gets married, there's this, oh, you're taking this person away. But the fact that it sort of kind of happened around the same time where I was already in a deep, relationship with Chris, it's almost like we didn't really skip a beat in a lot of ways. And we helped each other. Listen, I ain't talked to you for 3 weeks, and you ain't talked to me for a minute. and these kids is crazy. So it's like we understood. And so I think from the dynamic of marriage, I can also attest, I just really appreciate the connection that they had. So marriage, I think, changed our dynamic too in the ways that he gained a brother, and that increased just the friendship that he was looking for. I think a lot of that was found in Chris, and I think that, you know, they get each other in a lot of ways. And I've always prayed for my brother to have just solid people in his life. And so the fact that my marriage brought that, I think, was just a blessing from God. And we've always, even in the beginning, Chris made this declaration about our marriage very early on. And he says, I want our marriage to heal our families. And like, of course, we really don't know what that looks like, what the gravity of that means. But just the fact that he said that statement, I know that came from the Holy Spirit. And I know that we're going to see the fruits of that sometime in this lifetime, or in, you know, for generations to come. I think our marriage has done that, just not by siblings, but specifically with his mom and her relationship that she has with our little girl Artise, and how I feel like there's just a whole nother side of his mom that nobody's seen before, where she's like connected with her.
She's your stereotypical Haitian mother, you know what I mean? So, and not soft, you know, Leslie understands, but for the audience, she's a thug, you know what I mean? Never saw my mom cry. I saw my dad cry more than growing up with my mom, honestly. Like, my mom was like OG, you know, not emotional. So, yeah, this is her scene, like, being soft in this way is new.
Yeah.
What does that do to your heart when you see that?
It's a bit confusing at first, you know what I mean? But it's funny.
Wait a minute.
Right. No, we were at a restaurant the other day. Just a quick story, and we were eating, and she was interacting with Reese, and she was like doodling on this napkin, and she was like drawing like flowers and like that, and it was good. I'm like, I've never seen you draw, Mom. I didn't know you could draw. You know what I mean? So, you know, it was confusing at first, but I'm grateful that, you know, she has that relationship with my daughter. My daughter loves her. You know, she loves my daughter. So, you know, that trumps everything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's big, because we're not in any rush to have your kids or anything.
Take your time. Take your time.
But I think that's one of the things that I'm excited to see. Because I think my mom would be so happy. Like, I think she's trying to find ways to baby us. Mm-hmm. I think now that we're adults, she's trying to. But like as a kid, like
Yeah.
like as a kid, my mom would like go to New York, and my dad would be at it. We'd just be at the house,
yeah.
like 8 and 7 at the house for like 2 months, right? But then I think now as an adult, she I could see her wanting to like
Get that time back.
right, to get those time back and connect.
It's deep.
So I think now like with saying that, I think now as an adult, it's like she expects things from us, like as kids. I'm like, that's weird. Like, why would you expect that? Like, she's like, yeah, I call us every day. I'm like, that's weird. Like, that's, you know, that's different, because we, like, as a kid, we didn't do that. So now it's trying to get that time back. I'm excited to see how she will react with grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny that you said. That's why I asked, like, how does that do? Because I don't know what that's gonna do to my heart. Like, I feel like I'm tense. I'm waiting for whatever that is gonna be like.
No, for sure. It helps too, because my mom just had boys, so, and we have mostly boys in our family, so just that her first grandchild was a girl. I think that helps too, and they're alike in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? And how like my so crazy. My daughter is like so like such a girly girl, and that's more of my mom. In that way, that's more of my mom than Bree. So they're able to like wear makeup and heels, and you know Bree doesn't wear heels or a ton of makeup and anything like that. You know what I mean? Not that I want her to, but you know my daughter gets to do that with you know my mom. So it's cool to kind of see that too.
That's cool.
Yeah, I had a thought. I'm in rare form today. But
It's the flow.
right. So, and I'm not a therapist. But like I be making these connections. So Bree, you mentioned when your dad was in the National Guard that when he would come back, he would have to be like, okay, so you, let's talk, let's debrief, and then he would come back. You mentioned with your brother that when he went into the Marines, he came back, he was a different person.
You thought something's coming. Something's coming. Thanks, Roxanne.
Was that like a flash of like your dad in that moment? Did anything like happen in that moment when, your brother came back and you kind of saw like, oh, like you're a bit different? Was there like ever a...
Here we go. I wanted to be a daddy's girl so bad. Like really, really bad. Like I love my mom, and my mom is like my best friend, and that was something that I yearned for, was for me to be like a daddy's girl. And I think in some ways I was, but I think because of some of the dynamics that I saw with my mom and dad, there were instances where like I felt like my mom should have spoke up more, or there were instances where I felt like my dad didn't accept the sensitive heart that I had. And so when I was growing up and he would leave and come back, when he would come back, there was a little bit sometimes of this sense of, I don't know who you are 100% because months have gone and things have changed. And he has PTSD. And so also when we would yell or be loud or like knock something over, like he would just like tense up or get extra aggravated due to his PTSD because of that. And so we somewhat learned a little bit to walk on eggshells. And so having that experience as kids, and then when my brother had his experience and then he came back, it was 100% jarring, like for me. I don't know if I connected. That's why I'm like a little was feeling something come up. I was like, what connection is this? But I never really thought of that connection before. But I do feel like when my brother came back, I felt like that he had missed chunks of my life. And also there was so much that he was saying and trying to explain to us about what happened. But it was one of those, unless you were there, like you just don't get it. And so there was a long period of time where I felt like there were just pieces of him that were missing. And I was just like, who, is this person? So I feel like there was a loss there. I feel like if we had not done the work of just continuing to talk to each other and continue to see like the good things, I do feel like we would have probably had a strained relationship to this day. But because of God's grace and because of just, I think the amount of goodness that we put in beforehand, that we were so close, it would allowed us to sort of kind of, continue that way. And so I think, interestingly enough, for my brother, he will tell you, I wanted to be like dad. Like,
well, he wanted to one up.
And wanted to one up him, And so I think that there's this interesting dynamic between them that I sort of kind of see on this one side of this one up, on this other side, like my dad is his hero. And so I think there's a really interesting dynamic in the ways that, for me, my father leaving was, I feel like you don't know who I am and you don't feel the sensitivity of the name for the person. But for Tremaine and my dad leaving, it was, you're my hero and I'm going to make sure you're proud of me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to one-up you with the one-up is from his perspective of being a Marine versus being like in the National Guard. So I think it's just really interesting how even our different dynamics with our father, how it sort of kind of played out. And me and my dad have gotten so much closer over the years, mainly because I've realized that he's not finished growing. Our parents are not done growing. And it didn't hit me until I had my own kids.
Right.
And I'm like, the mother and father that Kanan and Artis experience now when they're 4 and 2, if they could verbally share who we are now, that would be a completely different person to who they see when they're 8 and 10. Like we're not going to be the same. And so
who they remember.
And who they remember isn't going to be the same. And so that reminded me of like, oh, my mom and dad are still growing and they're still learning. Yep. So I'm giving grace because I need grace with my own kids. Right. So.
Felt that
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Family Dinner Podcast. It has been an incredible conversation with Chris and Breauna Dorelus. So subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Instagram for more of this conversation and many more to come. Peace.